It's the Dad the Rock After Show. Now, here's Chris and Sean.
Welcome back to the Dad and Rock After Show. This is Sean.
And this is Chris.
And tonight we were talking about episode 7 of Ahsoka, titled, what was it called? Something about
Disappointment?
Land of Dreams and Madness. Dreams and Madness. Yeah, a little bit. So right away, off the bat, Chris and I were a little bit underwhelmed by this week's episode.
Yeah, I was off such a high from last week. Last week, it put me right into it. I was like, this is fantastic. I got Thrawn.
Yeah.
The Ezra return at the end was kind of meh. And we kind of picked up from there, honestly.
Although I did like Ezra in this episode. He went a long way to be like, oh, yeah, that's the Ezra I remember. Yeah. He got to show some personality.
We got Amber back here with us. Welcome, Amber. And said, excited to chat about this episode this week. And I want to know.
Excited.
Yeah. How this episode hit with everybody else. Because, there was some really cool things. I wish I knew the name of those little, like, hermit crab type guys.
Yeah.
That Ezra's been with. What was that?
Noti.
Okay. Like gnocchi. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I like them. I like the fact that they don't have a defense, but they are able to go ahead and like get in their little shell and hunker down, and they can basically wait anybody out, and then they can keep on going. It kind of explains how they've survived the way they've survived.
Yeah. Yeah, there were parts of this episode that I liked, and it was engaging, but it wasn't the same level because we had been ramping up. Each episode got better and better, and this we kind of came down a little bit this episode.
Yeah, Amber just likes anything David Tennant's in. Anything Hu Yang's in, she's all for it.
For sure.
Oh, yeah. Dude, the back and forth between Ahsoka and Hu Yang at the beginning was hilarious. She's like, well, I guess we're going somewhere. Or he's like, what are the odds? And I heard C-3PO in my head going through the odds of like them going into the wrong spot. And then she looks at him, just smiles. I'm like, that was fun back and forth.
She was teasing him, and it seems like Ahsoka is a little bit lighter. I mean, besides being Ahsoka the White now, she's just like lighter in mood since the beginning because she was very kind of moody and, somewhat disengaged, I guess, or like people were commenting the first episode or two, like she just seems like kind of like very low key and maybe not as Ahsoka-like as we're used to her in animation, right?
Yeah.
And we were like, well, she's been in the World Between Worlds and this and that. And we actually do see a lighter Ahsoka since she's come back from the World Between Worlds again, where she finally sees Ezra and she like laughs and smiles and
she sees Sabine and she smiles at Sabine, and we finally get the truth about why Sabine went with them. It's because she finally out said, "I thought you were dead."
Yeah,
that would make sense. That connects those dots between what happened when before Ahsoka went to the World Between Worlds, and then why Sabine went with them. So,
right,
I kind of like how they kind of tied that up.
Yeah. Let's see here. Amber says someone showed her human David Tennant, and she's feeling happier for it. But her teasing Hu Yang too was another example of just her being a little bit lighter version of Ahsoka.
And I think that was actually purposely done. I think the whole thing, from her being really introverted and like cold towards everybody in the beginning of the show, to where she actually hit that World Between Worlds, she was with Anakin. She learned her own lesson. Like, it was one last lesson to learn.
Right.
And we see that exact same thing play out in this episode as well. We see Baylon send Shin on her way. But there's one last lesson, never procrastinate, or a victory or something like that. Basically, don't assume a victory is going to happen. That's how you're going to lose. Type lesson. So I like how they've had two different ones going on.
24/7 Newsroom says, is that Bender? That's kind
Bender.
of dancing
that looks
robot.
Like Bender, yeah.
Dancing Bender. I agree. 24/7 Newsroom for sure. Yeah, so Ahsoka finally gets there. Well, first, let's not skip over the training in the little dojo, and she's playing Anakin's hologram, right? That was pretty cool.
Oh, that whole time was cool, yeah. Seeing him walk around, hearing him mention names, like
Mhm.
Grievous, like
Grievous, Asajj Ventress.
Asajj Ventress. When I heard that name, I was like, "That's a cool drop right there." And
Yeah.
then, I mean, Dooku is not a shock if you went ahead and mentioned, the other ones, but it was it was fun watching her. It felt forced. Like, I don't know if it was purposely a harder type of thing she was doing, because it didn't seem very smooth and fluent like we've seen her in the past with that type training.
Well, it was probably just re-engaging because when you watch, it was very like count 1, 2, 3. It was like it was, yeah, herky jerky. It wasn't fluid, but it was more probably just like positioning. And honestly, she was probably just doing it just to like get in a certain headspace.
Yeah.
Like I can see that. The important part was that she was listening to her master's voice again. Because before it seemed like she kind of shied away from Anakin or thoughts or memories of Anakin. Balin knew to use that earlier in the
Yeah.
show, a few episodes ago, mentioning Anakin, and she has this guilt. And seeing that she's able to listen to him and kind of, be nostalgic about the man that she knew way back
Mhm.
when, as opposed to just thinking of him as Darth Vader and where did this all go wrong. That was another example of some growth in Ahsoka's character, I
Yeah,
think.
I like how she's like, he was a great master.
Yeah,
And then she even lets on that she's got 20 recordings from him. And you see
yeah.
her put that one away. What was a cool thing that I noticed in that cabinet were all the other lightsaber hilts. Did you
Oh
notice that?
yeah,
There was
yeah.
a
I
good
noticed that like the first
maybe
episode.
10 other lightsaber hilts in there.
I can imagine maybe that's just, her adventures out in the galaxy the last, few decades or whatever, just coming across old Jedi or having to get in fights with maybe some or just, stuff that was passed down or lost. Like, if she came across those, she would want to keep those.
Do you think they all have kyber crystals, or are they
I
and
don't
just
know.
hilts?
I don't know that probably some of them do, but kyber crystals would come at a, pretty high price at that era in the galaxy, I think. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be really interested to know this, because I don't know if they're like just in case because they all look very similar to hers. So
Yeah.
almost like were they redesigning them for hers, unless if she loses one. But
Yeah.
it would be useless if she didn't have a kyber crystal go along with it.
Right. Amber says it's like Ahsoka has been going through therapy with Anakin, first in the world in between, then with the holograms. It's been helping her a lot for sure. I mean, if you found out that your former mentor turned into Darth Vader, you'd probably be a bit depressed and want to repress
Yeah,
his teachings too. Her depression is valid. Oh yeah, she has depression and she has guilt in a way because she kind of blames herself
because she
um,
left.
because she left. Basically, she's like, well, if I would have stayed, then maybe I could have stopped him from doing all that stuff. That's
Yeah.
just she has a lot of guilt when it comes to like Order 66 and how everything went down.
Well, it's funny because there's been a lot of like rumors on why um what's his name is there? Shin and I'm blanking on his name. The other
Balin.
Bale, thank you. Why he's there. And I've been trying to like find an actual clip to actually put in here from Rebels, but there's a portion of time where Kanan is talking to Bendu, and he says things don't make you evil. Even if you're trying to do good, it may still happen. And you look at
Right.
Vader. Vader was trying, or Anakin thought by doing what he was going to do was going to save Padme,
Yeah.
and it kind of it didn't work that way. It kind of so there's still, even with him doing evil, he was trying to do good, or you know what I mean. It's kind of set up like
Yeah,
that.
it was a twisted, the whole bring order to the galaxy thing is like, there's a certain way of saying that where it's like we know what the empire is, but from a certain point of view, they were the good guys. They were like bringing peace and order to the entire galaxy, and
Yeah,
to them, the Jedi had lost their way, which there's a lot of truth in that. The Jedi kind of had lost their
yeah,
way.
they got really blind.
Um, so I mean, basically, there was a lot there, but it's just, of course, Darth Vader went too far in his stance, and once he kneeled before Palpatine and really drank the Kool Aid, that was it for a few decades.
Oh yeah, once he did it, once he was in, he was in. There was no getting out.
Yeah. But yeah, so I thought that whole thing was cool. Once again, Hayden Christensen looked good, like the de aging and stuff looked really
Oh,
good.
it's phenomenal.
Yeah, really well done. So I like that whole kind of dojo scene. That was neat.
But just
Um,
seeing him wearing the same getup from Clone
yeah,
Wars, that
Clone
by
Wars era stuff.
itself, it I mean, once again, they're playing to a certain crowd, and they know who they're playing to, and
Yeah.
and it's good enough that if you didn't watch it, you're still gonna really appreciate it. But if you
Yeah.
did watch it, you're gonna catch on to a few little things, and it's gonna feel even that much more special.
Here's a question. So you mentioned she puts that little hologram away in a box that seems to have maybe the other 20 recordings in it. Do you think she gifts that to Luke at some point? Gives Luke the opportunity to like hear lessons from his own father as opposed to only having memories of Darth Vader? Because that would, I mean, what a gift that would be.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing. I didn't think of that. I didn't think of like when she actually met up with him and met up with Grogu and everything. If
Yeah.
that is
Which, and
something maybe she gave him.
we find out in this episode, this Ahsoka show actually takes place after all the seasons of Mandalorian. So we know, like right now in Ahsoka, she already knows Luke. So maybe she hasn't given that box to him yet, but maybe it's some. I feel like this is like a setup to where I see because I keep waiting for a scene where we hear more from Luke talk about Anakin, and there's more. I want
Well, we
Anakin
finally
Force
got a
Ghost.
legacy character drop in this one
Yeah.
here. I mean, we had C-3PO come in, and he mentioned,
Oh, we skipped right over that
yeah,
whole thing.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, he comes in, he basically saves Hera, and
Hmm.
he drops Senator Leia Organa's name. So
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, I didn't care for that whole scene as a whole. From before that, the whole back and forth with the Senator. Oh, I know I didn't disobey them. I disobeyed you. I
Right.
just didn't. It didn't. That did nothing for me. What do you think
Once
of that?
again, I'm still surprised. Well, I'm a Hera fan, so the fact that we keep going every episode, it's like we go back to her. When I think that her story's done, we keep going back to
Well,
her.
she's a
So,
linchpin
yeah,
in this show, really.
which I am happy about to keep seeing her B plot continue. Yeah, it was a little forced. It was a little hokey. As much as I love seeing as much as I love seeing original trilogy characters come back. And it makes sense that it wouldn't be Carrie Fisher, and I don't want them to have some weird CG Carrie Fisher delivering the
We're
news.
gonna see R2 in the next episode.
Oh, you think so?
Mark my words, because R2 and C-3PO have been in almost every. R2's been in everything Star Wars wise, every property, and
Yeah.
at least a cameo. They're gonna keep that going. We're gonna see R2 in some manner.
You know what I thought earlier today? It was like, what if they wrap up the Thrawn and Balin stuff early in the final episode, and we get some like scenes after the fact where we actually see Ahsoka deliver those recordings to Luke, and we actually see Hera talking to a HoloNet conversation with Leia, and you see little 5-year-old Ben running around in the background, like just to end the Ahsoka show with like some guest appearances by Luke and Leia. I'd be bouncing off the wall. I'd be so happy. But
I don't.
who knows?
I think it'd be neat. I
Yeah,
don't. I think I should. It wouldn't fit, and the reason why I would say it wouldn't fit is
yeah,
because then they would know Thrawn is back. Thrawn is back. Now there's a menacing uh issue out there that they all know about. So
yeah.
it wouldn't be a welcome, light-hearted Thanksgiving meal per se. This, you know what I mean? To get together.
No, yeah, I understand that. Plus, how they go forward on this whole thing, because it's not like they can have Luke, Leia, and Han just have central roles in the story going forward. They have to be like off doing something else, right? Which it doesn't make a lot of sense because if Thrawn came back in this galaxy, Luke, Leia, and Han would be central to whatever that conflict would be.
I
It,
don't know if Luke would be. Based on what we
mm,
know with his actual putting his actual school together and everything,
yeah,
and beginning his trainings and actually trying to train others, I don't.
Leia would be.
Leia would be absolutely because she's actually one of the what did they say, the defense ministers or something like that. She's like
Yeah,
top dog there. I think
right.
we'll hear her name drop some more. I don't think we will see her.
Yeah.
And now we know. I think Han is out. What, he's racing ships and running.
Or at least just starting to do that kind of thing,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's kind of out there living his best life.
Not
I
being a
think.
great father.
Yeah, kind of crapping the bed on that one. But
Amber
yeah, I
says it
don't.
could either heal or destroy Luke to see those. He could be healed seeing his father was once good, but it could destroy him to question why his father couldn't be that for him and Leia. Yeah, that's some Oh, don't get into daddy issues here, Amber. Chris and I will go off. We'll just start crying in the middle of this thing. I thought bringing 3PO was a good way to induce or include Leia without having to CGI her. Yeah, and using a weird voice recording thing. Yeah, I'm of the same opinion. It's a good way to get around that. We still have Anthony Daniels, thankfully, and you can honestly stick anybody in that 3PO outfit. Well, that's not true. I could tell that wasn't Anthony Daniels. He was moving kind of weird. You're used to how Anthony Daniels moves. Something was a little off with him. Maybe it's too shiny. It was too 4K, I
Maybe I
guess.
was just too thrown out of like not being really interested in what was going on there for me even to notice. Like I watched,
Yeah,
I'm like, like I said, not me, but let's move on. I don't
yeah.
want to be negative.
Well, we've have a lot of room here to be negative left with the remainder of the show, so let's keep going.
Oh, well, no, let's jump into Thrawn. Let's talk about Thrawn because he's my
Let's
guy.
do it. Yeah,
Every time Thrawn was on the screen, they nail it. If there is a great thing that's happening with this episode that pulled forward from the previous one, was their representation of Thrawn.
oh, yeah.
Straightforward, very calculated, wanting to flush out Ahsoka when she went into the rings, letting her think that she's actually ahead of him when he's actually 2 steps ahead of her. Like, he let
Right.
her hide, knowing that's what she would do.
Yeah,
And then he found, the mothers actually helped him locate her, fired her out, knowing exactly what she was gonna do. And with knowing what she was gonna do, had the actual other fighters ready for her. That
yeah.
that whole thing was fantastic.
It's all about big picture strategy when it comes to Thrawn. He's willing to sacrifice the battle so he can win the war. He knows exactly what to do to move forward and to basically, think that Ahsoka is making her own choices. Meanwhile, like Thrawn is aware of what Ahsoka will probably do at any given, path.
Oh, yeah.
So it is very cool. And they, even though he wasn't in this episode much, what they did give was very Thrawn. It was
He
like,
was
oh yeah,
very
that's it.
cold, very
Hmm.
calculated.
Yeah,
It's like when, I know we're getting a little to the end here, but we're still kinda talking about Thrawn. When all the troops were in, and they were going after our group of heroes, essentially,
yeah,
and he pulls them all out, and he's like, "Oh, few casualties, price of war, no big deal in the grand scheme of things."
yeah,
I'm like, "Oh, that's the Throne I like." But then, we have a clip here. Morgan actually went ahead and said, "What I see is our enemy gathering together. This wasn't a victory." And he went on and gave her this talking to, and I loved it.
In the grand scheme of things, one might even call this first match with Tano a success.
I see only our enemies reunited.
Let me show you what I see. With our enemy distracted, the cargo transfer is now almost complete, which means we shall soon leave this forsaken place. Ahsoka Tano has lost the one thing she could not afford to lose today. Time. Time is very much on our side now, and I shall keep it that way.
God, I love that. I love
yeah,
just like how I know I've said the word calculated already, but how calculated he is, how just like to the point. It's like, I know what she needs, and I'm going to take every second away from what she needs for us just to get out of here and leave her be.
yeah. I mean, you think of it like there's no way. That's what I'm so curious about how the heck they're gonna end up getting back. If it's something like kind of lame and hokey, like they sneak aboard the Chimera, or you know what I mean, like okay, I guess, but or something with the Purgle maybe. But it's like there's not a lot of options, not a
We
lot of
can't
wiggle
do the
room.
Purgle thing twice. I think
No, it seems
that's
cheap.
done. Actually, we've
Yeah,
already done it twice essentially. When
right.
Thrawn
Yeah,
and Ezra were taken here, and now
and
how
Rebels, and how
and now
Ahsoka
how
got
Ahsoka
here.
got here. So
Yeah.
we can't run that 3 times now. There's no way they can run that 3 times.
Plus, they all kind of booked it out of there because of the minefield in the beginning of the episode. They're like, "Nope." And, I don't know how many Purgle are actually flying around right now.
Oh, yeah, because they were getting their asses kicked. They were getting
Yeah,
smacked in the face with all these bombs, and they
yeah,
just bounced. Who knows where they I don't know if this would be kinda dark, but they were coming essentially, the only time they came to this planet is when they came to die.
yeah.
So were they coming to end their lives? I mean,
That's
at the
what that's
back.
what my assumption was. Yeah.
I mean, that was basically the back, and this was the final trip for
Yeah.
them. So, it, in theory, went ahead and threw off the migration pattern of the
Right.
Purgle. So, I mean, we're talking migration patterns now. So we're going deep in the Purgle.
Space whale migration patterns. Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah, so Thrawn was terrific. And what's that cargo? What's he loading up in the Chimera? What the hell is
I think
what's going on here?
it's got to be. I think that has to be like reanimations, if possible, of Night Sisters that from Dathomir. I think that's what it is. I think it's a deal Thrawn and the Three Mothers have is to bring these these sisters back. I don't know where they'll be going or what form they would take.
I don't know. I don't think it's soldiers. I don't think you could load a single Star Destroyer up, fill it up to the brim with soldiers. It's still going to be just one Star Destroyer full of soldiers.
But what if
And
it's
that
not
does
so
not make
much?
an army.
But what if it's not so much soldiers? What if it's to basically start the actual sisterhood over again? Basically
Oh,
restart where it was wiped out. Not so much to go ahead and then get revenge right now, but
yeah.
since they're kind of if we're looking at them as kind of like mythical, like the weavers of time, they would
Yeah.
know 100 years down the line they're going to be powerful again and they're going to be an issue.
Yeah, I want to know why they're joining Thrawn. It's not just because he's smart. I feel like they are using him the way that he is using them. It's like a
Oh
mutual, let's
yeah,
use
this
each
goes
other
both
for a bit.
ways. Yeah,
It's not some like loyalty or something. Like I feel there's something bigger going on here, and I can't put my finger on it. I don't know if like he's promising them like once this new empire is set up, like he's promising them to, they can have Dathomir back and be able to flourish again. Which would, that would be a big draw for them
yeah.
to be able to call their home again and be left untouched by whatever new empire is out there. Or is it something tangential like that, or something more solid? Like I don't know how these two entities kind of hooked up and like where they're going from here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess only time will tell. I mean, we don't have a whole lot of time.
We don't.
We are basically out of time.
Amber says the witches felt more Jedi than witchy this episode with their GPS and all that. I like them better last episode. Although I did like them chanting. I like when they use the force by chanting and swaying and
Well, I like anytime a non-Jedi, non-Sith used the Force.
oh, I thought it was badass when Ahsoka like went back and was like talking to Sabine through the force.
Yeah,
And the one lead witch was just like, "Oh, I got her." Like she sensed it.
her
She knew
eyes opened up,
exactly.
and her eyes were just black,
Yeah, she was
and
like, "I felt her in the force, and I know exactly where she is."
that was a very cool scene. I
That's pretty
enjoyed that.
badass.
And I also enjoyed how like Hu Yang found out that Ahsoka had a deeper connection to Sabine than he even thought.
Yeah,
Because he was like, "Do you have that connection with her, or do you have
right.
that deep of a connection where you can reach out to the Force and find her?" And Ahsoka, and well, Sabine didn't even know what was going on. She felt it. She's like, something's off. Something's going on because she thought Ahsoka was dead.
She was Leia in The Empire Strikes Back in that moment where Luke is hanging from the scaffolding on Bespin, calling out to Leia, and Chewie and Leia are in the Falcon making their escape, and Leia's like, he calls out to her and he's like, "Chewie, you got to turn back." And Lando's like, "Are you crazy?" And Chewie's like, "We're doing it." And they do that super sweet move with the Falcon, where it goes up and turns
Yeah,
around and goes back and picks
and
up.
goes underneath the city, and yeah,
But I mean, the connection between Luke and Leia, they're the twin, they had that connection from the get-go, and they're
yeah,
Anakin's kiddos. So, their connection is deep. So yeah, that is impressive that Ahsoka was able to do that with Sabine for sure. But yeah, that's what it reminded me of with that scene in Empire.
nice. Let me see. Amber's got one more comment here. If they snuck into the Chimera, you gonna pull it up or make sure? There we
Oh,
go.
you go. I
Well,
thought you were
usually
reading it, so I thought
if
you
I
were
think
gonna.
about it, you pulled up and want somebody shut her down. So if they snuck into the Chimera, it would have to directly lead to the movie, and I think they need to keep things more vague to lead up to who didn't
Let's see.
watch a show.
Yeah.
I don't think
Um,
they care about being vague. Frankly, this show itself has been too heavy
like
that you
heavy-handed.
have knowledge about prior Star Wars stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
So I
Um,
vague thing. I mean, I think they're going to dive even deeper. I think they're going to make things uh really interesting to see how they actually why if they're going to explain why Balin's there. And I've heard
do
a
we
bunch of rumors or
do you
theories, I should
think
say.
do you think it's possible we leave the Ahsoka show on a cliffhanger, leaving Ahsoka and Sabine and Ezra stranded in this galaxy? Like we don't see them get
I
out of
hope
the
so.
galaxy? You think oh,
Honestly,
you
I
hope
hope
so?
so
Yeah.
because that would leave them in a whole nother spot. Because Ezra is under the assumption, "Oh, you found me. It's important for me to get home now." So
I
he
know
even
that
said
last
that.
line of this episode it really struck me weird. He was like, "I think I'm going home," and it sounded like fine, like last words, like classic last words. Cut to next week where you're stranded here. It's gonna be
Bec-
Gilligan's Island.
it's been more than a 7-hour tour, or
Yeah,
4. I think that's my hours are wrong, but anyway,
yeah.
uh, because they had the ship, they got Hu Yang. The problem is they don't have hyperspace coordinates. They've got no idea where they're going.
Well, they don't have the power. Even if they had the coordinates and they were to jump in hyperspace, they wouldn't be going that super speed color
No, it would be a
laser show
jump to
speed.
jump. Yeah, no, it would be a jump to jump. It'll take them a
They'd be
while to get
spending
back.
years and years and years going because they wouldn't be traveling as fast as the Purrgil were.
Yeah,
So yeah, I don't know. Unless they sneak onto the Chimera, which is something Amber mentioned, and I don't know how the hell they get off here. Like, it would make
I
more sense if they do end up stranded.
I almost hope they get stranded and we don't see them off this planet until the
Yeah,
movie.
yeah,
So we have the Chimera back, we have Thrawn back. Now the New Republic knows they're back, and Mando, whatever they're going to do with Mando and that whole situation,
yeah,
is taking place. And now everyone's wondering, where's Ezra? Where's Sabine? Where's Ahsoka? What's going on? And the only
yeah.
one that would have any idea would be Hera. Hera's the only
Right.
one that would have any clue on what
Yeah,
happened, knowing that they got there, but now Thrawn's back and they weren't able to come back with him. So now she
yeah.
knows something's up.
And how cool would that be to open up this new story with Thrawn actually being in the Star Wars galaxy proper and starting up whatever he's starting up, and our kind of our main players, sans the Mandalorian or whatever, not even being in the same galaxy, and like, wow, where are we going from here? Seems like the good guys aren't available to stop Thrawn.
I would
I think
love
that
that.
would be cool.
I would love that.
Uh, yeah, I think that would be an interesting place to start for sure. Now that I say it out loud. Amber says also question for the newbie. Please explain Ezra. Is he Hera's baby daddy? Is he Ahsoka's boyfriend? Why does he matter exactly? So this is the whole thing as far as not watching
Yeah,
Rebels.
this is a whole big Rebels question right here, really.
So in a nutshell, Rebels was an animated TV show. It takes place before A New Hope, so before the original 1977 Star Wars. Empire's still in full swing, and things are bad. Luke and Ben haven't gone on their mission yet. Luke and Obi-Wan. So yeah, we actually meet Ezra. He's kind of Rebel's main character. He's a young guy. He's actually Luke's exact age. He was born 19 years before the Battle of Yavin that takes place in Star Wars, the first one. He meets a Jedi along the way, a Jedi by the name of Kanan.
Kanan Jarrus.
Kanan Jarrus, right? Who actually went by a different name before the Order 66, right? But I forget what he went by. But basically, he's a Jedi in hiding. Kanan is the one that hooked up with Hera. That's Hera's baby daddy. Kanan died in Rebels, and that was a big point. But basically, the Rebels crew was Ezra, his master Kanan, this guy Zeb, who appeared, the big purple
We got a
hairy
name
guy.
drop about Zeb
We
this
did get a
episode.
name drop. Big hairy guy that was in like one scene in The Mandalorian last year. And Sabine and Hera and Chopper,
And Chopper.
the droid. They were all a part of this ghost crew. They were on a ship called the Ghosts, and they were having rebel-y type adventures before the Rebel Alliance was a thing. And their adventures kind of were running perpendicular with the growth of the rebellion in itself, like Leia and Leia's dad, Bail Organa. They were all kind of starting up this rebellion. And it was a very like cool show, got into like deep force stuff, like stuff that we're seeing in Ahsoka.
Yeah.
It was the first appearance of the World Between Worlds. Ezra was the one to actually first accessed the world between worlds before Ahsoka even did. He actually saved Ahsoka
That
because
was
there was a
something when we
time.
seen that for the first time.
Yeah, so Ezra was a huge part of the show. Sabine and him were not romantically involved, but it seems like maybe Sabine's developed some feelings over time, or don't know what you have until it's gone, kind of thing. Because at the end of Rebels, Ezra sacrificed himself with the Purgle and Thrawn, because Thrawn was a big baddie, and he was like him and Thrawn were in this the Chimera together,
Yeah.
and that's what happened at the very end of Rebels.
And he
Like
told nobody what was happening. He just went ahead.
right,
He left a hologram disc basically saying bye. I've got
yeah,
to do this. I'm not going to tell you guys until it's actually in motion because you
yeah,
won't let me do this. He
yeah,
knew it was something that he was fated to go ahead and do. So he did it. And that's where we picked up with Thrawn being on this planet. He's with them. They've been exiled
right.
type situation.
So that's how we end up here, basically. And all the while, and this was like 10 years ago. There's been like a 10-year span where Ezra's been missing, Thrawn has been gone, and Sabine and Hera and Ahsoka to an extent have been kind of on a mission, trying to find word of where to find Ezra this whole time. So that's why, like, even Hera politically, they keep saying, well, we know what you're really after. You're just out to find your friend or whatever. Like they're giving
Yeah.
her crap about it. So it's a pretty well-known thing that they believe that Ezra's still out there somewhere. But wherever you find Ezra, you're more than likely going to find Thrawn too.
You're
So it's kind of
finding
this
both of them
double-edged
at the
sword.
same time. So
Yeah, but that, in a nutshell, is who Ezra is, and
that's a real big nutshell. But yeah, watch it.
is.
It's 3 seasons. It is great.
Rebels is really good. Yeah. But yeah, it is kind of weird where if you don't watch Rebels, all of a sudden you're introduced to this Ezra character, and he's just like one of the players, like somebody, even though he's brand new to a new watcher, people that watch Rebels like you and I were like, oh, there he is. Okay, now he can join and things are cool again. It's kind of a weird thing to introduce him so new like that, but already have him know everybody.
So what I'm hearing, Ezra is like Harry Potter and Thrawn is like Voldemort. Okay. No, I seen a meme earlier that was sent to us. It's more like, uh,
Ezra's
Aladdin
like
and the
Aladdin
genie.
and yeah, the blue genie.
I'll never unsee that.
I know that was fun.
That's ruined me.
The guy that was cast as Aladdin, Mina Massoud or whatever, he was actually in rumors for a long time to be cast as Ezra, and it just didn't pan out for him. Poor guy. He never got cast in anything again after Aladdin.
I was going to say, I think it's been rough ever since that Aladdin role.
Yeah, I think it's been rough for him. But is there anything else this episode?
Okay, so let's talk about 2 things here.
Yeah.
The night troopers.
Yeah.
At one point, I think we were discussing last week, I thought maybe they were reanimated because of all the layering and everything. You thought maybe they were just kind of brainwashed characters.
Yeah.
I think you're more right than I am.
Yeah.
And the reason I lean that way is because every time one died, however they died, they were just laying there like troopers. There was no black mist or anything like, they were reanimated and just kind of disappeared like Merrick did or anything else down those lines. So I think they're just a part of the seventh fleet.
But they were definitely more fanatical than a typical stormtrooper
Yes.
would be, as far as like just chanting Thrawn and their look and how they carry themselves. It seemed as though if they weren't naturally turned into being that fanatical, they probably had help. And considering their night sisters involved, I think that's probably an easy assumption.
Oh yeah, they may completely not be themselves, and they may have been that way from the beginning because Thrawn keeps on saying, "Mother,
I need your help.
I need your help again."
Right? Yeah.
So there's always that line he has said when he's going to them, and that could have been something from the very beginning. Rather than worrying about any type of dissent, they went ahead and put something over them. So they're just in line no matter what.
Right. Yeah, that's what I think too. What's another thing you had in mind?
What is Baylon looking for? What do you think is on this planet?
That is something that's just like that's like the big mystery that nobody's really talking about.
I'll
like
tell you
even the
what
characters.
What I want it to be, because it's gonna be live action and it'll be oh my god, fantastic.
What's that?
I wanted it to be a Bendu.
Like A or the
they are the Bendu. So like what we
I
see
didn't
in
realize
Rebels,
it was more than that one guy. Yeah,
he's a Bendu. He's the one in the middle.
Okay.
So I would love for him to walk up on like a big rock structure, like a side of a mountain, and all of a sudden this Bendu stands up.
Yeah,
and he says, just like in Rebels, oh, you're the one that's causing the disturbance in the force. You're the one that woke me up from my long slumber.
Right.
I would love to see a live Bendu. That'd be so cool.
It would look pretty great. So far, the special effects have been pretty spot on Ahsoka. So if they use some of that budget towards a big Bendu, that would be
Because if
cool.
a Bendu's there, that would also lead to the beginning. And with
Yeah.
Bendu, he also in Rebels, he refers to the brother and sister of light and dark. So he
Yeah.
refers to that as well. So if all of a sudden, if we seen a white owl fly in and land on his shoulder, I mean, I'm talking some deep Clone War stuff here with that, and then with Rebels. This is, but I mean, that would play right along with the rest of how he's handled the show. He's handled the show more as a love letter to the fans rather than hoping new fans would come on board.
He's running at a certain speed with this show, and he expects you to follow and catch up with him.
Yeah,
for sure. Which, it may be something big like that. And honestly, I just don't know. I haven't the foggiest. What
could
the
it
heck
be a
he's
Mortis
after.
portion? Could there be an area where all of a sudden all of instrumentation is gone? Could this been the planet that Mortis took place on? Could there be a mountain where Mortis was actually where the Mortis arc took place? So all of a sudden, you know how the weather was all over the place and it was sporadic? What if this is the planet that took place and they're just not in the proper location for that?
It could be any of that, and it could be none of that. It could be something brand new. Frankly, they introduced a brand new galaxy in the show. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if we see something brand new that's some other new power that's explained. I don't know.
They're giving us the beginning. I think they're going to be very calculated, because what they're giving us is the beginning of the Force. And if we're getting a movie or a set of movies that's going to be around the beginning of Force users, whatever they give us here is going to be tied to that in some manner.
Probably, yeah.
So I don't know if we're going to get the answer.
I don't think we are. No, I don't think we are. I think there's not a lot of heck. There's only one episode left. This is the penultimate episode. There's only one left. Amber says, "What ultimately do you think will happen between the Great Mothers and Thrawn? Who ultimately overpowers whom?"
Well, I think the Great Mothers stay behind.
Answer.
I don't think the Great Mothers come with them. I think that
the three,
yeah. I think they stay, because that's always kind of where they've been. That's my assumption.
That's true.
Even when the Sisters of Dathomir were on planet, they were always there. So that's kind of where they belong.
Unless that was part of the deal, like
they leave with them.
Yeah, maybe they were stranded here somehow.
And they actually take all the catacombs to Dathomir, and they actually begin the rebirth of Dathomir.
Right.
Ooh, that would be interesting.
Yeah, I am curious to see, and I am also curious to see if there's going to be some sort of a deal breaker between the two parties. Because anytime there's this isn't a relationship built on love and trust.
Yeah,
this is like
what can you do for me lately?
Exactly. Yeah. So, also Amber says, "Oh, and random question: where did Sabine's rat, wolf, horse pet go? I don't remember him leaving her last week. He was actually in one of those hermit crab things." One of those trailers. He was hiding.
He was in the one that they were on. Because when Sabine and Ezra came out the back, he was there, and he basically told them to stay in the truck.
Sabine told him to stay inside to stay safe. He was in there for like half a second this episode. And also, if they don't go with them, how does reanimate the bodies in cargo? Oh, that's true too. If that cargo really is, they probably need that Night Sister magic. So.
Yeah, they'll need to be able to go ahead and do so, but.
That is if that's reanimated bodies. It may be some actual like element, like I don't know if it's like a Beskar, or maybe something that's specific to this planet that could help him in his war efforts going further.
What if it's the gold that Enoch's mask is made out of? The ship has been repaired with.
Yeah.
What if that has some type of like Kyber crystal-esque type of ability to it?
Or type of value that he'd be able to sell and, build an empire basically with financing a new empire with what he's taking. Because literally, say you have some element, some material that's from a different galaxy, is nowhere in the Star Wars galaxy. How precious, like a precious metal. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know what's in that cargo, but if it's something like that, that would make sense too. Now that's kind of a longer play though. Like, to sell stuff off and then get money and then use that money to build ships and stuff.
Yeah.
That's more of a long-term plan. So I don't know if we have time for all that. So who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. Like we were saying before, I think the next episode, I think they need to almost lead it off like the first 10 minutes. I think Thrawn should be gone.
Yeah,
I think we should get Thrawn in the first 10 minutes. They're done what they're doing, and then they look
that's what I
up
want.
and they see the Star Destroyer, the Chimera, leaving.
Yeah,
It gets in that big hyper ring, and then they're gone. Now
Yeah.
we got to go ahead and figure out what's happening with our crew that's left. And then we got to see some type of no, I don't want to see anybody. I don't want anyone in the New Republic to know that Thrawn's back.
right.
I'll love it to stop the show end, cut to black, and then have no idea the Chimera and Thrawn's back. Because now he needs to repair his Star Destroyer. He's got
Yeah,
it's not ready for any type of battle. He's got to meet up with the other remnants of the Empire to
Yeah.
prepare for what's coming. So I kind of hope that's how we end the show. Even though I have no idea when the next season
Oof.
or is going to be a season 2.
Amber agrees. Leave a cliffhanger on Thrawn and pick him up in the movie. Yeah, because you can infer this is like the story of how Thrawn gets back to the Star Wars galaxy. We don't need to see anything else from there. We can pick up his story later, and he can still be rumors, because his return is all rumor right now, and it can stay that way for a while, even after he's back. And maybe you see because there was that one general that we saw in The Mandalorian, when
Gideon was
John-
actually looking at all the holograms. Yeah.
yeah, and there was the dude with the white mustache who was like all about Thrawn, like, hey, Thrawn's coming back. Like, we can kind of infer that, the Empire and the remnants of the Empire is going to start, working their magic.
Well, you know what, guys? I mean, I think we've talked about this one. I think a lot more than we intend. I think what me
I
and
think
Sean have
so.
a problem with sometimes is we actually start theorizing. We start pulling
Yeah.
things from other, avenues. If it's the books, if it's the cartoons, we have someone as awesome as Amber asking questions about Rebels, which is going to send us down, rabbit holes.
Oh yeah,
as well.
ask us a Star Wars question and we got to answer it.
We're gonna give you an answer of some sort. And if it's Thrawn, I think honestly, I've been pretty good with my Thrawn, fandom here. I've been kind of muting it a little bit, enjoying it as much as I can, but not stretching us out too long. But if
Right.
it's something you guys enjoy, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Join us. I mean, now we have the after show for all the other shows that Ahsoka's been on. Next week is our finale of the show. Join us. Let us know what you think. We are completely interactive. If you have a question, you have a thought, we'll pull it up and we'll address it right on the spot.
And
But,
we will be live this Sunday too. We're also covering Welcome to Wrexham. We just started back on that season 2 of that show where Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney bought a team over in Wales, football team in Wales.
Yeah, get it right, football team.
Yeah,
you were
football
wearing
team.
your Louisville City hat, on Sunday last time.
Well, I'm. Oh, Christopher's. We'll just say hi. Christopher's late to the party. Hey, Christopher, thanks for joining us as we're leaving.
Drinks
but yeah,
we stopped serving drinks a minute ago.
Yeah, that's right. Join us this weekend for that too. Stay tuned for everything that's coming on the channel.
Okay, guys. So we look forward to seeing you next week for Ahsoka. Join us for Wrexham, but I think it's a good spot to say, may the Force be with you.
See ya.